Are the Florida Gators really a sleeping giant in college football? If they are a sleeping giant, in the last 4 years they must have been in a coma because it's been that bad for Gators fans. But if you're a college football fan like me, all you got to do is turn the dial back just a little bit more to about 20 years ago, and you can see just how dominant the Florida Gators could be. But first, before that, we got new head coach Jon Sumrall in here, and he absolutely believes the Gators are a sleeping giant ready to be awakened. He's quoted right after his spring game saying, "It's time to wake this thing up. This is a sleeping giant." And he goes on to say, "It ain't a matter of if we're going to win here, it's how fast we're going to win." And he's not the only one. If you go back even farther into the 1970s, the original GOAT of college football, Bear Bryant, before Nick Saban had his way at Alabama, Bear Bryant was the GOAT of Alabama football and probably the GOAT of college football. And he said, quote, "There's a sleeping giant down there. Don't poke that alligator. It's asleep. You won't like them when they wake up." And he knew the same thing that we as college football fans know, which is the Florida Gators, to be one of the best teams in college football, they just need the right coach at the helm. You look back again, 20 years ago, their head coach was Urban Meyer. Would you believe that Urban Meyer was only at Florida for 6 years? He was there from 2005 to 2010, and in 6 short years, Urban Meyer won 2 BCS national championships, and he had a Heisman with Tim Tebow. Florida is going to be full of talent. They're going to be full of an amazing fan base, and all they need is the right guy at the helm. So let's jump into a little bit more about if Florida is a sleeping giant, why would they be a sleeping giant in today's college football? The first reason that Florida could be a sleeping giant is that they have some of the most fertile recruiting ground in all of the country. The state of Florida itself, I believe, has the most active players in the NFL right now. If not, they're a close second or third behind Texas and California. But per capita, they are up there in how many players they're putting out into the league. And Florida, aside from Miami and Florida State, don't have too much additional competition for those players. But because Florida and Miami and Florida State for so long have been so bad, there's been a mass exodus of those players in Florida all throughout the country. And we're seeing now Miami, they're improving year after year, and they're getting a lot more of those top players in Florida year after year, which is why they're playing so well. But they're in the ACC. If Florida can start playing well, being in the SEC, having that top tier of talent has the ability to come to them. And nobody knew this more than Nick Saban. Nick Saban, one of his entire recruiting strategies was just trying to corner the best players in the state of Florida. Tell me if you know any of these names that went to Alabama. Alex Leatherwood, Pat Surtain, Trent Richardson, Dallas Turner, HaHa Clinton Dix, Calvin Ridley, Derrick Henry, Dylan Moses, Jerry Jeudy, Amari Cooper. I could go on and on and on and on of the players from the state of Florida that Nick Saban took. And those players are probably a big reason why Nick Saban won the amount of national championships that he did, because those players weren't going to Florida. They weren't going to Florida State. They weren't going to Miami. They were going to play for the best of the best at Alabama. And if Florida can prove that they can compete in today's college football, they can also get those players. And here's the thing, just because they miss out on that top talent in Florida quite consistently, it doesn't mean that they just don't have anybody on their team. Like, with how Florida finished last year, would you believe me if I told you that they were 12th in the 24/7 team talent composite last year alone? It wasn't the player ability that was holding them back last year. It seemed like it was the coach ability, the scheme, the coordination. All of that was off the rails. But the players, the talent, that was there. Not only does Florida have some of the most fertile recruiting ground in the country, but they also have some of the best fans and one of the best atmospheres in the country. Florida Gators fans, lovingly referred to as Gator Nation, have one of the most passionate and largest fan bases in all of college football. But if you haven't noticed lately, they've been pretty quiet. And a lot of that's just because the performance on the field isn't what they've expected. See, Florida fans, like a lot of other fans in the SEC, they have really high expectations. Just imagine if the floor fell through LSU or through Alabama or through Georgia. Yes, the fans would still be there. They'd still show up at the games. They just wouldn't be as loud on Twitter. They wouldn't be as passionate maybe whenever their team's already losing by 25 at halftime. But they're still there. And what they're waiting for is they're waiting for the right guy to get in at the helm so that they have something to cheer for. And don't get me wrong, even though I say they've been quiet lately, that doesn't mean that they're less passionate. They showed up in droves under Billy Napier, no matter what product they were getting on the field. They were still packing out the Swamp week in and week out, 88,000 strong. Speaking of the Swamp, Ben Hill Griffin Stadium is one of the best atmospheres in all of college football. It holds over 88,000 fans on any given Saturday, and with the conditions that you have in Gainesville of it being hot and sweaty and muggy, the conditions are just really unforgiving for opposing teams. You've even got opposing coaches like Eli Drinkwitz just recently at SEC Media Days say, quote, "Have you been to Ben Hill Griffin Stadium? It's one of the top 15 stadiums in the world." And then he paused for effect and said, "In the world." And from my side, as a fan of an SEC team, you know that if your team is losing inside the Swamp late in the game and the fans are into it and Florida has been rolling, it feels like it's impossible to come out of there with a win. So yeah, Florida has a history of winning. They've got great recruiting ground and they have one of the best fan bases in the country. But where does that leave us today? Well, I think that leaves us with just one question. Is Jon Sumrall the guy to wake up the sleeping giant? After Billy Napier was fired, Jon Sumrall takes the head coaching position for the Florida Gators in November of 2025. He was a former linebacker at Kentucky, and he started his coaching career in 2005 actually at Kentucky after his playing career stopped. He then went on to be a defensive coach at multiple different stops, coaching linebackers, being a co-defensive coordinator, before officially getting his first head coaching position at Troy in 2022. He spent 2 seasons at Troy, where he went 12-2 in 2022 and then 11-2 in 23, finishing with a 23-4 record there. He then went over to Tulane for the following 2 seasons. 2024, he went 9-5, and in 2025, he went 11-3. All in all, in his last 4 seasons, he won 2 Sun Belt championships at Troy. He went to 2 AAC championships with Tulane, and he won the AAC championship in 2025, made a college football playoff appearance where they lost to Ole Miss in the first round. Also, notably, in 2024, he beat Alex Golesh in USF, the new Auburn head coach, and in 2025, he also beat Duke with Manny Diaz and Darian Mensah, who's the new Miami quarterback at the helm. So Jon Sumrall over the last 4 years has essentially been nothing but a winner, winning conference championships, making it to playoffs with a much lesser program than what he's getting at Florida. And he's trying to build a great staff around him as well. He brought in defensive coordinator Brad White from Kentucky and offensive coordinator Buster Faulkner from Georgia Tech. Now, if there's 2 things that I know about these coordinators, number 1, Kentucky, defense was never the problem. Under Mark Stoops and under Brad White, defense was never an issue. Offense, that was a different story. But their defense is what kept them in almost every game that they were in. As for Buster Faulkner, I think he made the most of what they had on the offensive side at Georgia Tech. They obviously didn't have the 5-star recruits year after year there. He was able to maximize what Haynes King and Justice Haynes were able to do, as they were essentially a 2-man show on that offense. Really, I'm just excited to see what he's able to do when he has good, viable pieces in place at all 11 positions. So in conclusion, is Jon Sumrall going to be the one to wake up the sleeping giant? I don't have a great answer for you. Now, Florida fans out there, I know you want me to say yes, but if I was to listen to what all the pundits were saying about Billy Napier when he first got to Florida, I would have bought on you then. And if I did buy on you then, I would have lost a lot of money. So I can't buy in on a guy like Jon Sumrall quite yet, but all he has to do is in his first 2 years prove to me he can play winning football. But all in all, I do think Florida fans should be optimistic about this coming season and about this coming staff. Jon Sumrall himself, like I said before, he's a winner, and he's retaining some great talent from the 2025 season. I'm just feeling burned with how everything ended up with Billy Napier. You now get a coach, another coach from the G6 level, another coach from the G6 level in the state of Louisiana, oddly enough, and you think he's going to come in and do something different? I think he absolutely can. Billy Napier had so many flaws in the ways that he was operating the system, that he was not willing to relinquish control of the offense and offensive play calling duties. All of those things eventually led to his demise. So Sumrall can absolutely come in and he can make a difference. I need to see it to believe it. So yeah, the upside is absolutely there. The downside, if this all blows up in your face, all it does is set you back another 3 to 4 years. The same thing that happened with Billy Napier. And I know Gator Nation absolutely does not want that. So if things don't turn around quickly, I think they might even have a shorter leash with Jon Sumrall than they did with Billy Napier. However, one thing's for sure. If things do work out with Jon Sumrall, Florida's going to be a very dangerous team for as long as he's there. Because I do believe that Florida is a sleeping giant, and all they need is the right guy to wake them up. Anyway, Florida fans, tell me how you feel about Coach Sumrall. Do you think he's going to be the one to wake up the sleeping giant that is Florida football? If you are a college football fan, if you're an SEC football fan, and especially for you Florida Gators fans out here, make sure to drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel. We're talking college football, mainly SEC football, 3 times a week. And I'm going to continue dropping new videos, so I really do appreciate your support. This is a new channel, and any sense of engagement helps. And with that, we're out of here. Hope you all have a great rest of your day, and we will catch you next time.